Hi, and welcome to Mrs. PM Reads. We are continuing in our story, Zoo, by James Patterson and Michael Ledwidge. We will be in book 4, chapter 82 today. In the last video, let's see, a lot kind of happened. Of course, Oz recovered from the car accident, and a bear tried to attack him, and he discovered that smoke kind of masks the human scent, and so it allows the animals to move on. And then we go up to New York, and we find out that the gate to the protected part of the city has been left open, and Attila shows his face again, and he and a whole bunch of animals, like tons, are streaming in to the protected area of New York, where we're going to think that probably Chloe and Eli are. So that was a lot in 2 chapters, wasn't it? So now we'll see in chapter 82 what's going to happen. The bag of popcorn in the droning microwave has begun to go from a few desultory pip pops to a full-on clamor as Chloe chances upon a large plastic mixing bowl in the sprawling apartment's pantry. She takes note of a stash of instant soup boxes above the shelf where she just found the bowl. There is no way to tell how long they will be here in this place, so it's good to know where they stand with food. Things will be getting better eventually, she thinks, as she climbs back down the folding step stool. It's just a matter of holding out. Arriving back into the bright marble kitchen for a moment, she takes small solace in the aroma of butter and salt, a smell that conjures up family, happiness, and safety. It doesn't work. Her resolve, wavering all day, evaporates. She flings away the bowl and covers her face with her hands. The comforting scent is a mockery now. There will be no more comfort, she knows. Her family is separated. No one is happy. No one is safe. Though she has never told Oz about it, she had panic attacks in grad school that had been serious enough for her family to convince her to see a therapist. It took almost a year of hard work and a brief hospitalization to finally conquer them. Since Oz left, she has felt them creeping back. The same itching fear, the same paralysis, the same pathological self-condemnation. Worthless, says an inner voice as she bends over the countertop, shivering. Worthless as a wife, a mother, a woman, a human being. I'm hoping that this is not triggering anyone. I'll put a trigger notice in the description. Okay, only 2 things will happen now. She will get her son killed, and she will get herself killed. The bone-drilling shriek of the microwave timer brings her back out of the hole she's fallen into. She squeezes the cold edge of the marble countertop until her knuckles whiten. She wipes tears with the back of a hand and checks her face in the glass-fronted cabinet above the sink. She dumps the steaming popcorn into the bowl and heads back into the living room. In the cavernous room, Eli sits cross-legged on the oriental carpet, gazing up, wide-eyed, at the monolithic flat-screen TV on the wall. A rerun of The Simpsons is on. Homer runs away from an out-of-control car. To escape, the cartoon character dives into a manhole, only to do a faceplant on a hot steam pipe. Under ordinary circumstances, she wouldn't let Eli watch TV that wasn't at least vaguely educational. Under these circumstances, though, Chloe kneels down and hugs her son, inhales his smell, and listens to him giggle. I like this fat yellow man, Mommy, Eli says. Chloe kisses her son on the top of his head and remembers something. One of the therapists that she used to keep her panic attacks away was an exercise. She had started going to the gym every night after school to swim laps before dinner. It cleared her head. It worked. She doesn't want to leave Eli at all these days. In fact, she feels like attaching him to herself in a papoose, as she did when he was an infant. But her anxiety is buzzing in her skull like a power drill. Her little meltdown in the kitchen proved that. If they are going to survive, she needs to calm down. She needs to be strong. Hey, Eli, baby, listen, Chloe says, setting the popcorn in front of him as though it were an offering for an idol. Mommy's going to go exercise now in the room on the other side of the kitchen, okay? Okay, he says automatically. His eyes are fixed in an absent dreamland gaze on the TV. His tiny, smooth hand digs unthinkingly into the popcorn, then delivers a fistful to his mouth. She is in the small workout room, about to step onto the treadmill when she hears a sound. Coming from the window, it is a soft, distant crackling, almost like microwave popcorn cooking. She walks slowly to the front of the apartment. She hears more sounds as she opens the door to the hallway. A kind of strange chugging sound starts up, coming from one of the lower floors, followed quickly by a violent knocking, as if a stone fist is banging on a locked door. Chloe bites her lip hard enough to draw blood. Gunfire, she thinks. Someone is shooting. She slams the apartment door hard enough to topple a vase from an antique table beside her, her heart chugging in time to the machine guns as her fingers turn the locks. Chapter 83. We had to wait around for a while before we picked up and taken away from the place where our SUV had crashed. Being out in the open while we waited was a strange feeling, simultaneously boring and terrifying. The whole time I stood on the highway median, leaning on the smashed truck as I looked up and down the flat, empty highway through the sight of Alvarez's M16, praying we wouldn't see another animal. A Humvee with a roof rack full of blazing lights finally arrived about 15 minutes after we'd called. 2 Marines jumped out. There was a dead St. Bernard lashed to its hood with bungee cords. They were taking trophies now. This was a war. I wondered who was winning. The F took you so long, says Alvarez. Attacks are everywhere now, Sarge, said the driver, a wiry black man with haunted-looking eyes. We had to shoot our way out here. The Pentagon got hit. Reagan Airport is completely overrun by a swarm of dogs. The hangars, the terminals, everywhere. No planes in or out until the situation gets dealt with. Terrific. No flights. I thought, as we carefully laid Alvarez's bloody as a butcher's apron and spitting curses across the back seat of the Hummer. Now, how the hell was I going to get home? I was stuck. The driver pounded the gas and floored us back to the Marine Corps base camp next to the White House. We didn't encounter any more animal hordes directly, but down alleyways, side streets, inside windows, we could see movements, shadows scurrying. The whole city felt infested now. Relatively safe, relatively. back inside the base and the packed medical tent, I was getting stitches in my elbow when an attractive petite woman with reddish brown hair came in. She carried a walkie-talkie and had a White House security badge clipped to the lapel of her pricey blazer. "Is there a Jackson Oz here?" she called out. "I'm looking for Mr. Jackson Oz." I sat there a moment in silence while she trawled the medical tent. What did they have in store for me now? I thought. An IRS audit, perhaps? I'd come down here in order to help, and all I'd gotten to show for it was being stranded and separated from my family as the world dissolves into chaos. Oh, and a car wreck, 20 stitches, and a bear. But as the redhead was turning to leave, I called out to her, "I'm Jackson Oz. What do you need?" Her eyebrows danced as she lifted her walkie-talkie. "I found him," she said into the radio. "I'll bring him straight away." "Bring me where?" I said. "Rihanna Morton, Deputy Cabinet Secretary," she said, offering a hand. 5 minutes later, "Bring me where?" I repeated. I thought I had read that already. "A cabinet meeting is adjourning as we speak. Ms. Morton says Mr. Leahy said you have a presentation." 5 minutes later, I was back inside the White House compound, hurrying with the staffer past the flower beds and boxwoods of the Jacqueline Kennedy Garden. We went through a basement door and up some stairs and turned to the right down a majestic paneled corridor lined with fireplaces, antique bookcases, and bronze busts. "I guess this isn't another runaround after all," I thought as we realized we were walking through the White House's West Wing. In the cabinet room vestibule, a hulking Marine in dress blues checked my ID with a white gloved hand. Among the crowd of suits behind him, I saw the Vice President and the Secretary of State. They were joking around with each other, something that involved sticking Post-it notes onto the blackberries they weren't allowed to bring into the meeting. Outside the nation's capital was melting down. Probably the world too, but the well-protected politicians were sharing a pleasant moment. No wonder people liked Washington, D.C. so much, I thought. Chapter 84. I heard a familiar voice behind me call my name. There was a soft sound of electric buzzing, and the crowd of suits parted as Charles Grow hummed up to me in his wheelchair. I grasped his hand. "Finally, a friendly face," I said. "What's the word? You hear anything?" "Are you okay, Oz?" I remembered that I was filthy and covered in blood. My sleeves were rolled up and my loosened tie dangled absurdly down in front of my blood-speckled button-down. "I'm fine. Car crash, bear attack. I'll tell you later. Any news from the world?" "It didn't work, Oz," Dr. Groh said as I followed his wheelchair from the security line to the other side of the hallway. The bombing campaign was nothing more than a lot of sound and fury signifying jack shit. Now that they're done with their temper tantrum, they want to hear from us. "We should take a minute to compare notes," I said, motioning to Dr. Groh toward the corner of the room. "Sounds good, Oz," he said, producing a thin gray MacBook Air from a leather satchel dangling off his chair. "These are thick skulls we're going to have to try to get through." Aides were sitting like ducks along both walls of the cabinet room when we came in some 15 minutes later. Rihanna Morton directed me to a chair at the end of the oblong table farthest from the door. As she tipped a pitcher of ice water into the glass in front of me, I noticed there were several glassy monitors set up on rolling carts. The Chancellor of Germany was on one of them, whispering with an aide. Another screen was the British Prime Minister. This meeting will be video conferenced with several world leaders, Ms. Morton explained. The paramount leader of China should be online any moment. As I tried, unsuccessfully, not to let that information rattle my chain, President Hardison arrived. Everyone in the room who was seated shot to their feet, except for Dr. Groh. It was the first time I'd seen President Marlena Hardison in person. She did have a remarkably arresting presence. This slightly heavy-set woman with bags under her dark green, owlish eyes that had almost an intimidating intelligence in them. She was stately in pearls and a midnight blue blazer. "Okay, everyone," Hardison said, waving to the people to their seats. Her voice had that familiar husky rasp that I'd heard on TV 1,000 times before, but it was an odd feeling to hear it in the flesh. She smiled as she sat down at the center of the table. Her smile had no warmth in it. I remembered myself that her teenage daughter died yesterday, and that I wasn't supposed to know that. "Mr. Oz, Dr. Groh," she said, nodding to us, "please, tell us what you know." All eyes were on me. I sucked in a deep breath. "Thank you, Ms. President," I said. "Everyone, my name is Jackson Oz, and for the last 10 years, I've been researching the aberrant animal behavior, now known as HAC. Animal attacks on people have been around as long as people have been around. But over the last 15 years or so, we began noticing a startling exponential increase of animal on human violence. Coupled with this increased aggression, animals also began exhibiting behaviors uncharacteristic not only of their particular species, but also of mammals in general. All over the world, as I'm sure you've noticed by now, animals are aggravating in swarms or herds and attacking human beings en masse. This is not happening at random. Animals are forming into insect-like swarms. "Insects," said the Secretary of Defense. "Why? And why now?" Charles Groh cut in. "Inadvertent man-made changes to the environment, sir," he said, clicking his laptop to control the PowerPoint display. I waited for the hydrocarbon graph to pop up on the screen before continuing. Recently, human beings have caused two things to become prevalent in the environment that weren't around before: electromagnetic radiation and the byproducts of petroleum. Petroleum is an organic compound made up mostly of hydrocarbons. We believe that in the last 15 years, the explosion of electromagnetic radiation due to cell phone use has begun cooking, if you will, the hydrocarbons that are all around us, ultimately changing their chemical makeup. This new hydrocarbon mimics animal pheromones, but it's stronger. It's this pheromone-like pollutant that's making the animals go haywire. In essence, we believe that because we have changed the way the environment smells, animals have changed the way they behave to it. Pheromones, the Secretary of State asked. I thought they only worked with insects or something. Charles Groh shook his head. Many animals respond to pheromones: communication, food gathering, mating behavior, aggression. All these things involve scent. That may be one reason why dogs in particular have been so susceptible. Their sense of smell is 100,000 times stronger than ours. But why are they just attacking us, said the president. Why not each other? That's where another factor comes in, I said. It seems that due to all the petroleum-based products we use, the human scent is actually mimicking an attack pheromone. The animals are being drawn to us with the same automatic ferocity of wasps in a disturbed nest. Said the president. It was almost a harumph. Toxic pheromone pollution. How can we combat that? Charles Grow and I looked at each other. This was it. We'd finally arrived at the hard part, what had to be done. The first step, I said, would be removing the factors that are causing the environmental disturbance. Remove petroleum products, said the president. And cell phones, said the Secretary of State. I nodded at both of them and then looked at the faces around the table and on the screens. Desperate times, ladies and gentlemen, I said. Here's what I think we should do. And that's the end of that chapter. We're going to stop there. Interesting. It looks like we're going back to New York and Chloe's apartment for the next chapter. That'll be interesting. I'm curious to see how this whole book ends. We're getting there. I think we're at 85 maybe, and there's 99 chapters. So we're coming close. Chapters are getting shorter. So yeah, curious to see how this all is going to wrap up. All right, you guys. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye.